joining me for another episode of Story Time with Tanya. For today's story, which is called Encrypted Hearts and Stolen Hooves. Trinity looks at me crazy when I tell her I bought a farm over an hour away from Louisville, where we were born and raised. What do you know about horses, Jamal? I thought the same thing when I saw the listing, but something about its vast expanse of land called me. I don't know a damn thing about horses, but this one came with a pair. While it gave me pause, I was still drawn to this place from a picture, and when I toured it a week later, I knew it was supposed to be mine. Whatever I didn't know about horses, I could learn because the 100 acres is what I truly wanted. My sister and her husband now bring my nieces by regularly. My sister and her husband now bring my nieces by regularly to brush my mares and feed them carrots. I learned the basics of taking care of Bonnie and Cinnamon thanks to the kind former owners who spent 6 weeks with me showing me the basics. Mucking out stalls isn't the most pleasant but manageable and a small price to pay for their companionship and the occasional ride. Lexington is well known for its equestrian routes, so it was easy to find adult riding lessons, which I do every now and then. It's been a few months since I sold my game console startup. I now have a lot of free time and capital to develop my latest venture in gaming. Sky Fortress is gonna be big, and I develop it in between walks with my mares and my 5-year-old mutts, Busta and Biggie. One might think I'm lonely, but one bad breakup was enough for me to take a break from the dating pool. With my morning stall and feed check done, the dogs and I take our weekly Wednesday walk along our fence line to make sure it's still intact. A few weeks into the home, Cinnamon took a stroll after a portion of the fence fell after severe rain. She didn't get far, but it was a lesson learned. There was so much snow on the ground, today's walk is taking longer than usual. Busta and Biggie are hopping around in the snow carelessly when we hear an unusual sound from the neighboring farm. It's strange. As long as I've been here, I have never seen the owners of the farm next door. I haven't fully adopted the small town attitude of a friendly neighbor just yet, but it is strange I have never seen or heard much from next door until today. I command the dogs to sit and stay as the sound of the heavy machinery draws closer. It's hard to miss the John Deere logo on the tractor, and this thing means business. The air is suddenly silent as the tractor is turned off. When the cap opens and a clearly feminine yet unsightly hat peeks out, I am intrigued. She waves before hopping down, and I'm almost struck dumb. I've never seen a woman driving one of these things, and despite the distance, I can tell I'm in trouble. Where's she been all this time? And why is this the first time I am seeing her? I shake my head clear of my thoughts as she looks at me with a puzzled expression. Whatever she said, I have clearly missed, and I'm duly embarrassed. Hey, new neighbor, she repeats. I can't believe this is the first time our paths crossed since I have been home. Pops was really excited someone bought this place so quickly, even though he was sad to see the Johnsons leave. How have you been adjusting to life outside the city? The Johnsons were so nice. They took time to make sure I knew what to do around here. But I'm curious. How do you know I moved from the city? I inquire with a slight smile. We all know who you are, and it's hard not to. This is a small Black farming community, and we do our research. It also helps that the local news covered the sale of your startup. Essential tech is just outside of town, so it would be talked about in these parts, Jamal. I'm Rhonda Jenkins. Welcome to Small Town USA, she answers with a sheepish grin. We'll be working on this side of the farm, clearing it for a few buildings. We'll try to keep the noise to a minimum as best we can. I'll get back to it. Nice to meet you, she continued before turning around and walks off. The sway of her hips and twin braids down her back are a sight to behold, and as we part ways, I am intrigued. It's been a few weeks since our first meet, and Rhonda has been on my mind. When I pass my kitchen window and see the tractor from afar, when I walk the fence line, I occasionally find myself distracted thinking about that sway. So much so that I give up the fight and do a little research. She's impressive. She is impressive. A cybersecurity consultant and a chicken farmer on a 500-acre family-run farm. It's quite an oxymoron, but it works for her. And judging by her Bookface account, she appears to be single. She's on my mind so much when our paths crossed early Saturday at the new KT Mart, I initially thought it was my imagination. Her unique sway caught my attention and I knew instantly it was her. When she waved me over, I'm excited, but I play it cool. I don't want to give desperate vibes, but she seems so fucking amazing. Hey Jay, how's it going out there? She asks, as she checks out ahead of me in line. Now, I haven't gone half of what I planned in my basket, but I'm checking out just to be near her. Not too bad, just... I trail off as the noise of a small crowd near the community board gets distractingly loud. We turn and see Miss Joyce at the center of the crowd, teary-eyed. We glance at each other in surprise. Rhonda quickly grabs her bag, and I leave my basket to head over. Rhonda hugs Miss Joyce, asking softly, Miss Joyce, what's wrong? How can we help? Miss Joyce runs the local flower shop, and she is just the sweetest person. I can't imagine what's causing her distress. Dolce's gone missing, and I can't find him anywhere, she whispers in a watery voice. Dolce is a large, noisy dog, and hard to miss, which makes her tearful comment all the more concerning. Miss Joyce, I'm sure he'll turn up soon, Ron, the library manager, pipes up from the back of the crowd. It's been almost a week and I can't find him anywhere, she all but wailed. Now, Miss Joyce seems like a calm enough person and she seems distraught. Ron pushes himself through the crowd and says, Miss Joyce, let me walk you on home. We'll look around. She nods her head and they walk off, the small crowd dispersing, leaving Rhonda and I staring at the community board. I know I'm new around here and just getting out in the community, but is that normal for this area? That's a lot of missing animals on that board. Rhonda shakes her head no with a puzzled expression. She looks about as confused as I do. Can I walk you to your car? Rhonda nods her head in agreement. We walk in a comfortable silence during our short walk, and when I reach for her door handle, our fingers touch. She backs away, allowing me to open the door. Her beautiful brown, heart-shaped face is flushed with excitement. Sorry about that, I say, clearing my throat. Her braids fall over her shoulders as she gets in the car, and when she drives away, I stare after her, beat-up Wrangler a while, before heading back to shop for my full list of groceries, and after I check out, I snap a picture of the community board on my way out. I'm engrossed with programming over the next few days, so much so that when my home phone rings on Tuesday, I'm startled and stare at it blankly for a few moments before hopping up to grab it. I smile when I hear Rhonda's smooth voice on the other end, but the seriousness of her tone has my full attention. Jay, I know it's last minute, but can you come on down to the town hall meeting tonight? You can meet more folks from around town, and I really need volunteers. I'll explain this evening. I give a silent thanks to my sister Trinity for convincing me to get a home phone that's listed, as I agree to join at 7 p.m. There's standing room only by the time I arrive, and there is a strange sense of excitement in the air. There are images of the many missing animals on the projector screen, and I'm surprised to see there are more missing dogs, cats, and horses than what I saw on the community board. Mayor Davis taps the gravel loudly and clears his throat to speak. Thank you, everyone, for coming on such short notice. Rhonda was kind enough to pull all this together, and I will hand this over to her now so we can get started. Thank you, Mayor Davis, for your support, and thank you, everyone who stopped by this evening. I promise to make this quick. Rhonda's confident and warm voice is soothing, and she speaks with a passion for this community I am now a part of. The sign-up sheet is here, and I ask volunteers to jot down what days and times you have available to go door to door. See if we can find our lost animals. I'll pair us up as best I can, she added as the meeting draws to an end. I take a few moments to introduce myself to some folks I haven't met. The truth is, I am delaying as long as possible so I can get a chance to talk to Rhonda. Once I saw a pause in signups, I head over to jot my name down. The first name I see is Rhonda's. I scan for the days and times she's volunteered for, and when I see she signed up for Saturday morning, I write down the same time. Yes, I have plans, but it's plans I don't mind breaking. I would rather spend time getting to know her than catching a ball game drinking beers with the guys. When she comes over to grab the list, I mentally cross my fingers, hopeful she'll pair up with me. When she sees my name with Saturday, she smiles widely. Looks like it's you and I this Saturday. I'll pop over at 8 a.m. sharp. She spins, and just like that, she's gone with me staring after her once again. And when I finally come to my senses, Mayor Davis waves with a knowing expression on his face. I'm slightly embarrassed to be caught, but shit, I can't help it. By the time Rhonda rolls up on Saturday morning, I had been up for hours in anticipation. I swing the door open before she can knock. Good morning. My voice trails off as I get a glimpse of Rhonda's golf cart. You know it's gonna rain, right? No sooner than I get the words out, a slight drizzle starts to fall. Of course, she responds brightly. And that's why you're driving. I can map out where to go while you drive. Come on, let's go, she says impatiently while I grab my keys to my Dodge Ram and I follow her like a lost puppy. I sigh, thinking I'm lost to her cause because I'm so intrigued by her. She looks just right as I glance over at her in the passenger seat as she maps out what direction and where to go. We're headed towards the outskirts of town, which I'm not familiar with, so I'm grateful to be paired up. We move effortlessly through the increasing rain in some muddy areas thanks to four-wheel drive, so we're not losing any time. Rhonda's take charge and caring attitude is clear as we knock on doors. She knows everyone we encounter as we go door to door, asking if anyone has seen any of the missing animals. The temperature is dropping by noon, and we have covered a good portion of the eastern part of town. I know. I turn up the heat when we hop back in the truck. Trying to stay dry in this weather is feeling impossible. About a mile down the road, Rhonda looks up and says to me, "Let's stop at Mrs. Cho's next, and then we can head back into town and warm up and get some lunch." I nod in agreement as she points to a barely visible driveway on the left. As I turn on the road, it's rocky and heavily wooded. Mrs. Cho is so sweet. I haven't seen her around town in a while, and I'm looking forward to seeing her. Mrs. Cho is pint-sized and offered to feed us every 5 minutes. She reminds me of my grandmother. She clucks her tongue after asking us a third time if she can get us a drink. "Mrs. Cho, we're just going around asking if anyone has seen any of these missing pets. Have you seen any strange pets around?" She stares at Rhonda blankly. She seems to be lost in thought. Mrs. Cho? Rhonda says gently, which seems to bring her around, but she seems slightly confused. A loud bang interrupts our conversation, to which Mrs. Cho laughingly says, "Oh, don't mind Milton. It's time for his dinner. Are you sure you're not thirsty?" "No, thank you, Mrs. Cho. We'll be on our way," Rhonda says gently as she gives her a tight hug. As we sit down to place our orders with hot, steaming coffee in front of us, Rhonda is deep in thought with a sad expression on her face. "All right, what gives?" "You're quiet. Is everything okay?" She sighs as she looks up at me. "Mrs. Cho just doesn't seem herself, and I'm concerned. I'm going to give Doc Barnes a call, see if there's anything we can do. She's a widow, and her kids moved away a long time ago, but I've never seen her so forgetful. She asked 5 times if we wanted anything to drink, and that's not her. She asked us 5 times if we wanted anything to drink, and that's not her at all." She shakes her head before attempting to take a sip of the steaming coffee when it spills slightly on her hand. She winces with discomfort. I grab a napkin, dipping it into my ice water and pressing it gently onto the burned area. We stare at each other enthralled in silence as our hands remain still. "All right, lovebirds, what can I get you?" Mrs. Donaldson says loudly, interrupting our silent staring contest. Rhonda turns to her sheepishly. "Catherine, I didn't know you were here." "But I wasn't till a few moments ago. Jada had to leave early. Do you know she rescued a dang donkey? A donkey! Who rescues a damn jackass? Turns out, ran off." Catherine shares in exasperation. My head swivels to Rhonda, and we both say at the same time, exclaiming, "Mrs. Cho!" I drop a $10 bill on the table, hurriedly, telling Catherine thank you, but that's it for today. Rhonda and I rush out the door and head back over to Mrs. Cho's. When we knock on Mrs. Cho's door a second time, she welcomes us as if we had not been there an hour ago. "Mrs. Cho, we want to ask you about Milton," I say firmly. "Milton?" She looks at me quizzically. "Who's Milton?" Rhonda is teary-eyed as she takes Mrs. Cho's hand, silent with sadness. An hour later, Doc Barnes arrives with his wife Anna and Mayor Davis. Rhonda sat with Mrs. Cho while I checked out the barn, where I found Milton and a barn with dogs and cats enclosed in a few stalls. The 4 of us get to work calling around to help reunite them with their owners. It was almost 8 p.m. by the time we were done. It was a long day. On our way back to my place and Rhonda's golf cart, she leans on the window with her eyes closed. I steal glances at her while we're en route, and I drive as slow as I can to prolong the evening. Rhonda, seemingly efficient in everything she does, hops out the car so quickly I have to scramble to catch up with her before she gets to her cart. "Rhonda, wait. Are you okay?" "Of course," she responds. "A little sad, but I'm just happy Mrs. Cho's in good hands until her son can get here." In that moment, I can't bear to see her walk away again. "Rhonda, listen. Why don't you come in?" I say with a nervous smile. We're standing in the rain, staring at each other. "Just for a little while. I just want to spend more time with you." I press lightly, hoping she says yes, and when she does, my heart jumps. She turns from her cart toward my front door, and this time, I'm not watching her walk away. I feel like we're walking towards something beautiful together. The end. I hope you enjoyed this story called Encrypted Hearts and Stolen Hooves. And a note about this story. The story was inspired by my recent travels to Kentucky, where I got to visit a horse farm, a thoroughbred horse farm, and we got to feed some carrots to horses. And it was beautiful. It was snowing. It was gorgeous. But that's where the inspiration of this story came from. But thank you for joining me for this episode of Storytime with Tanya. Catch you next week.